All right, Steelers Nation, welcome to episode 2 of the Kold Steel Podcast. I am your host, Kold Steel. And man, today we're going to be expanding on what we talked about in episode 1, which was the announcement from Stephon Tuitt that he was going to be retiring. We kind of flirted with the idea of what the Steelers are going to have to do to fill in that gap, fill in that space, which is not going to be easy. But I have a player that's on the current roster who should be considered. And his name is Isaiahh Loudermilk. Yeah, you heard me. We're going to be getting into that very shortly. I do want to run down a few things before we get into that discussion. First and foremost, the podcast can be now found on audio platforms, which includes TuneIn, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Stitcher Radio, and a lot more. All you have to do is go to your respected audio platform and search for Kold Steel Podcast. That's Kold with a K. And if you don't mind, drop a like, drop a heart, whatever it is on those platforms. And I do believe some of them have the option to do reviews. If you guys could do that for me, it will help the audio platforms push the podcast out to more listeners, and we can continue to grow in that fashion. Follow me on social media, including Twitter, Instagram, and yes, don't laugh, I'm on TikTok. Haven't really used it yet, trying to figure it out. But you guys can follow me on all social media at KoldSteel412. I'm very active on Twitter. A lot of the stuff that I talk about, I put out on Twitter. And right now, it's kind of the hub for everything that is coming up for not only the podcast, but the channel. So you guys definitely want to be following me. If there's one platform, follow me on Twitter. Eventually, a lot of this information is going to be transferring over to the website, the KoldSteelNation.com website, which we'll get into that later this week. And you guys definitely want to bookmark that website into your desktop bookmarks or your mobile bookmarks. What else could we got, man? Oh, yeah, definitely hit the like button on the channel. That helps tremendously. You guys have no idea what the like button does for the channel, as well as start leaving comments on all the videos. Give me your feedback or just engage in the topics we're discussing. That helps the channel grow. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of this year, 2022. And last year we hit 2K. We're just over 2,000 subs now. Trying to get to 3,000 by the end of the year. That's this year's goal. And last but not least, let's talk about memberships. The KSN memberships are back on the channel. And I'll be doing a video later this week, probably Thursday, breaking down all the details related to the KSN memberships. All right, folks, let's talk defensive line. It is going to be the one area that is going to be the most interesting in my book. I know some people are probably thinking the Steelers' offensive line is the biggest question mark coming into this season, but I think, and I would even argue, that it's the defensive line, especially with the announcement of Stephon Tuitt retiring. I think that is the biggest question mark this team has going into the season. And now with Stephon Tuitt retiring, the question is, who fills his spot? Because if you go back to last year, this defense was, if I'm not mistaken, the worst on run defense. And quite frankly, it was responsible for a lot of the raging I did during watch parties last year. These guys could not stop the run, regardless of who they put in. And if I'm being honest, outside of a rookie, an undersized rookie, mind you, they haven't done much in the offseason to fix or boost that defensive line. Now, that said, a lot of that had to do with Tyson's injury. We know this. And Wormley, Loudermilk, those guys didn't really produce the way we were hoping. And we even brought in another guy at some point in the season. Point is, defensive line is the biggest concern, especially with the announcement of Stephon Tuitt's retirement. So this brings me to a player that has intrigued me by the name of Isaiahh Loudermilk. Loudermilk, during this offseason, has bulked up in a way that could benefit the Steelers greatly in an area where they struggled the most, which again is the run defense. We haven't had a guy in the middle of that defense probably since Casey Hampton, I would argue. It is one of those areas where you need a guy that is not only big, but can move. Obviously, Casey Hampton, big snack is what they called him. Very missed, obviously. And we're not going to get that from any of these guys on the roster currently. However, we need to talk about Loudermilk because I don't think he's being talked about enough. And after just looking into everything he's been up to this offseason, and I'm going to be doing that with every single player, believe it or not. I got my work cut out for me. It's going to be a busy time in the Kold Steel household, let me tell you. It's what they make iPads for. Loudermilk has been bulking up in a good way. Loudermilk had this to say recently. He said, when I first got here and I was taking on doubles, you can't do that at 275. He came into the Steelers organization as a 5th round pick, and the Steelers told this guy, listen, you got to bulk up. 275 is not going to cut it. Well, after he was drafted, he obviously listened to that, and he did put on the weight. And in 2001, he reached 305 pounds. But he felt like he wasn't getting the good weight, which means he probably just gained weight in the fat department, which doesn't do you any good. It makes you sluggish, and it's not the kind of weight that you want to gain, obviously. And I'm kind of walking you guys through the journey here, the transition from year 1 to year 2. And we're going to be talking about that a lot on this channel as we head to training camp. So in 2001, Loudermilk put on the weights that the Steelers requested. However, not the kind of weight you want. So in 2022, he started working towards transitioning the bad weight into good weight. And what is good weight? Well, if you don't know, good weight is when you add muscle. That's the kind of weight that you want. More muscle means he can push through offensive lines. It means he can get a hold of guys and keep a hold of them to bring them down. It does a lot of things. It gives you the weight, but it gives you strength. And that's what I believe in 2021 Loudermilk was lacking to an extent. Loudermilk would also go on to say, I put on some weight during the season, but you can't really get or put on good weight during the season like that because you aren't lifting a whole lot and you're dealing with stuff from the games. This offseason, I really wanted to put on good weight. So that's what he's doing. You put in that kind of effort, it usually will produce amazing things. That is one of the ways you can succeed on the field. The other, of course, is mentality. And he also stated that he's been really, along with Cam Hayward, who is the veteran on this defensive line and arguably the entire defense. The defensive line specifically, though, has been putting in work in regards to the playbook, play styles, and year 2 is going to be exciting all across the board. Again, we're going to be talking more about that as these podcast episodes continue. So you guys can look forward to other players that we're going to be talking about. Specifically, year 2 guys. So again, you got Cam Hayward, our veteran, putting in efforts to help these guys progress in the offseason. And the one thing I can't stress enough is looking at what Loudermilk has done physically, which is going to help the mental aspect of the game. And I can't help but be excited. And more importantly, he's verbally noticed that he has an opportunity now with Tuitt stepping away from the game of football. Now, will the Steelers go out and sign a free agent? Should we be talking about free agents right now? We could, but I'm not going to at this moment. The reason is, I look at history. I look at what the Steelers have done, and they always like to continue to support in-house talent, whether it's coaching staff in general, or players. They are always going to look at the guys they have. And they really like guys they draft. So Loudermilk is in the driver's seat, so to speak. Now, granted, Wormley could definitely play a part there in some fashion, of course. Loudermilk could be the guy who replaces Tuitt, but Wormley is a strong candidate as well. I don't know what his offseason routine has looked like just yet. But here's something to consider. Tyson is 35 years old. He's coming off an injury last year. He's had injury problems throughout his career. I can't stress that enough. Tyson is up there in age. Chris Wormley pulled 7 sacks last year in just, 15 games? But the biggest issue with Wormley is his run-stopping ability is a giant question mark. And we saw that in the game film. And then, of course, the Steelers this year, during the draft, they bring in a guy, DeMarvin Leal, who, even though I can sit here and tell you I'm high on, and I like the potential there, this is going back to yesterday's live stream, which if you guys haven't, definitely check out Let's Talk Steelers every Saturday morning, afternoon. We talked about potential being potential. That's all it is. We don't know what these guys are going to do on the field because it hasn't happened yet. So everything at this point is speculation. But again, at least we have youth on the roster. And even though there's potential with Leo, we have to wait and see how that goes. And I mean, the whole discussion around him is he's undersized. He's a rookie. He was a 3rd round pick, though. So right now, it's just a question mark with him. So the biggest question is, who replaces Tuitt? Well, there's your answer. When you look at everything under a scope, the guy who replaces Tuitt is probably already on the roster. And it's Loudermilk. This is a guy who, again, physically improved himself. He's mentally getting prepared, working with Cam Hayward in that department. Probably working on some new techniques. Probably adding more strength to the skills that he does have. I'm pretty sure he's aware of the mistakes and what that run defense looked like last year. So you don't have to look too far when it comes to the defensive line. Now, is the Steelers' defensive line going to probably be the best, not only in the division, but the entire NFL? Probably not. But that's where other positions come into play. Now, I'd like to see the Steelers' defensive line play better so that guys like Edmonds and Minka aren't playing linebacker, which is what they've been playing, I would say, hell, the last 2 seasons maybe. Definitely last year. And it's been one of my biggest gripes. You got safeties coming down playing linebacker. That's how bad the defensive line has been. And again, I know Cam Hayward specifically is paying attention to that. Loudermilk is too, which is why he's progressively working on being ready for year 2 in every way possible. And that is what you want to see. That is what you want to see. You got Miles Jack. We added him to the linebacker core right behind that defensive line. Because let's be clear, the run defense can't be completely blamed on the defensive line. We have to put blame in other areas as well. And middle linebacker was definitely one of those positions that has some responsibility. So when you add Jack to this defense, yeah, I'm a little excited about that. I really am. Now, whether or not Devin Bush is going to bounce back and prove he deserves to be on this team, that is another question mark. You know, one week we see stuff from Devin Bush in the media or social media, that gives us hope. And then we see other things where he just doesn't look like he's focused. So we'll have to wait and see there. But all of these positions are going to play a key in turning the run defense around. But defensive line is, in my opinion, once again, biggest concern going into 2022. I do think the Steelers are going to entertain bringing in a free agent. They always do. But as far as starting quality players, not much out there. Not much out there. You got some veterans out there. Sure, you can make that argument. But when I look at the Steelers' history, Loudermilk is the guy that's looking like the most likely to be taking over Stephon Tuitt's absence. And regardless, I have faith. I truly do. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 2 of the Kold Steel Podcast. As you guys know, I like to keep these on the shorter end. When we have guests on in the future, these podcast episodes will obviously be a little bit longer. So you can expect that. But once again, I want to remind you guys to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're listening on audio platforms, hit the like, a heart, whatever it is that you can express that you enjoyed the podcast. Please consider doing that. And once again, follow me on social media at Kold Steel 412. Steelers Nation, thank you for tuning in. I will be seeing you guys Friday for episode 3. And yeah, man, the offseason is underway. Training camp is around the corner. And before you know it, preseason is going to be here, man. And I can't wait. I'll see you guys in the next one.